Well, that's not going to work. And let there be light. G'day and welcome back to my workshop. Today I will be showing you how to add LEDs to your printer, and not just normal LEDs, RGB LEDs with which you can change the color to anything you like. My primary use for this will be to add lighting to my printer so that when I monitor it using my webcam, that I can actually see what's going on when I switch off the lights. Here I took two LEDs of a RGB LED strip and I extended them using 3 wires, one for ground, one for signal, and one for power. And I took another 4 wires, one for the same 3 connections, and on the other side, one for the D out pin, so that when I have the 4 wires at the connector, I've got D in and D out so that I can continue the string. And these 4 wires are long enough so that when the x-axis moves up and down, there's enough slack so that nothing will get caught. When you make your connections on the RGB LEDs, you have to take note of the direction of the LEDs. Most of them will have a little arrow. If they do not have an arrow, they will have D out and D in labeled as DO and DI. So D out goes to D in. And the last thing you will see me do here is I'm just braiding the wires together. You can do this whichever way you like. You can use a piece of tape, you can use a piece of heat shrink. I just found that braiding the wires together, even though it's a bit tedious, it gave me a nice clean result and the wires stays together. So when you put it through the loom or you cable tie it to another piece of wire, there's not 3 or 4 wires that is going everywhere and can get stuck on a print or on your X gantry or anything. So after you've made all your connections and you've made sure that all the LEDs are in the correct orientation, you can go ahead and secure the LEDs in their printed enclosures. For me, that means securing the LEDs to the hot end as well. I've got one LED on the hot end and I've got 2 LEDs on the camera. And that means super gluing the LEDs to the bracket that I printed out for the camera, rather than pulling off the tape and securing that to the camera, so that in the future, if I want to change out the LEDs, I don't do damage to the camera. While you are securing the LEDs, just take note that the return cable for the D out needs to be out of the way of any moving parts, or in the case of the camera, the actual lens of the camera. So just stick that in the corner of the bracket, or in the case of the hot end, to the front of the hot end, and secure that with a small dab of super glue. I am using super glue here, but depending on the type of material you use to print your hot end or the mount for the LEDs, just make sure that the glue won't degrade the material. This is the controller that I'm going to be using to control the RGB LEDs. The schematic can be found on the WLED website. The only thing I did was to beef up the traces on the bottom where the power and ground are going to be running through to the pin on the other side that's going to supply power to the LEDs themselves. I printed out a case that fits the little PCB that everything is connected to, and that just slides into the T-slots of the printer. The 5 volts that powers the entire controller comes from the same 5 volt power supply hidden in the basement of the printer that powers the Raspberry Pi. This is a 9 amp 5 volt power supply. Unfortunately, my camera died during the filming of the Y cable, but to make it easier to connect the LEDs to the controller, I made a simple Y cable with the data going out on the one pin, and on another pin the data comes back in, and you can continue that until you get as much LEDs as you want, and the power simply tees off on the power and ground pins. So you won't have a situation where your power wires are too long, because you simply tee your power wires every time you want to make a new connection to a new string of LEDs. For the circuit that I mentioned earlier, simply go to Google, search for WLED, scroll down to install WLED, and on the Getting Started page, you will find the circuit that I mentioned earlier. On the circuit, you will see that it mentions a level shifter. This is not always necessary, and I omitted it from my circuit and it seems to work fine. You will also see that it mentions a 1000 microfarad cap. I did not have a 1000 microfarad cap on hand. Instead, I used two 470 microfarad caps, and those seem to work perfectly fine. To add WLED to your Klipper instance, the documentation can be found on the Moonraker GitHub page. You can simply copy-paste the macros that you want to use into your Moonraker conf, and at the bottom you can add the required configuration. Just remember to update the IP address. And there you have it. Now all of your macros are on the home screen. And you can see by using the macros, I can change the color of the LEDs. I can turn the LEDs on or off for all of the LEDs. Or by using the set LED function, I can change the color of all the LEDs or a single LED. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know if there's anything else you would like to see. Thank you very much.